secure the chamber. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President,
All right. On this very special Valentine's Day, we are very pleased to have Father Paul Sparklin of the St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic Church here in Crofton, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from District 33. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Dear friends, let us pray. O God, you who are called by many names in many languages in our state, worshipped in many ways in many places within our communities, you who are the author of life, love, and justice, we give you thanks that we have eaten today. We remember our neighbors who are food insecure and pray that we would work to increase access to the food that is necessary for healthy bodies and minds. We give you thanks for this heated building and our use of it. We remember our neighbors who are homeless and pray that we would work to increase access to safe, affordable, and comfortable housing. We give you thanks that we are healthy enough to be here tonight. We remember our neighbors who struggle with chronic illnesses, with addictions, with the burden of medical debt, and pray that we would work to increase access to dignified, adequate, and affordable health care. We give you thanks for the education that has prepared us for the responsibility of leadership. We remember our neighbors who are struggling in school and are in struggling schools, and pray that we would work to increase access to an education that will prepare all our children to succeed in life. We give you thanks for the range of resources at our disposal. We remember our neighbors who live with debilitating poverty and pray that we would work to increase the pathways out of generational financial struggle. We give you thanks for the welcome we received this evening from colleagues and friends who value our contribution to the life of our state. We remember our neighbors who also contribute much, but who do not feel welcomed, and pray that we would work to increase their sense of safety, of worth, and of belonging. O God, author of life, love, and justice, we pray that you will use us to cultivate the kind of state and world of which you dream, a place where everyone flourishes and where we no longer know anything but peace. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. All right?
Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks for all you do.
Oh, thank you. Chair recognizes the senator from District 33.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Father Sparklin, a native of Baltimore, spent many years as the chaplain at Johns Hopkins University before being assigned to St. Elizabeth Ann Seton about 10 years ago, and we're blessed to have him. But the interesting story is he walks at what he says. We just got done a week in our parish of winter relief. And for those of you in Anne Arundel County that belong to some churches, it's not a Catholic issue. It goes from church to church, where we take homeless people, get them off the street during these very cold times, give them a hot meal, clean clothes, a nice warm place to stay. So, Father, thank you for your leadership in our parish, and move that his remarks be journalized.
Thank you, Senator. Without objection, most certainly we will journalize the wonderful invocation this evening, and you'll be pleased to know our daughter CJ just had her first reconciliation on Saturday, so she is, the slate is clean. Well, hopefully. We don't know what happened today at school, but yes, no. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, has everyone recorded their presence? It appears so. The clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Senators, happy Valentine's Day. I know that the protocol committee did some diligent work to make sure that it was appropriately celebrated. I want to thank the incredible protocol committee for the wonderful card and the treats that were provided for everyone on this very sweet day. I hope everybody enjoyed the game last night. Close game, huh? Kind of was an obvious one. I thought the Rams were going to take it for sure. But the Ferguson family won every single quarter in the scorecard game. So it was a big win for the Ferguson family. All right. One other announcement before we kind of jump into guests and resolutions. We are back in person. We had our first in-person session today with executive noms. Highly successful, bringing folks together. This is going to be a week of transition, our first time fully back in 2 years. So it's going to be a very, very different feeling, but I think it's going to be a welcome relief to sort of get back to the way of living life in person again. And we'll also have the House joining us once again. We're glad that they know where the chamber is. They'll be back this week, and we're going to do a lot of work together, a lot of great work together. So, all right, let's go ahead. I think we have a resolution. Let's go ahead with the resolutions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we have the gentlemen of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity joining us. It's International Director of Social Action, Malwan Johnson. It's Maryland State Director, Mr. Jasper James, as well as its Maryland State Director of Social Action, Mr. Larry Lipscomb. And I wanted to say these gentlemen, if they're not in your communities, I will tell you you're missing something, because they've been so involved helping me in Baltimore County with things such as our voter registration drives, expungement clinics that I would hold when I was in the House of Delegates, as well as canvassing to ensure that people were counted for the census. So with this is resolution.
The resolution will be read in full.
Be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity, Maryland State Chapters, in recognition of 106 years in Maryland. Thank you for your empowering generations of men to believe in advocacy, community service, and engagement.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Everyone, all right, the clerk will take the call. The Senate of Maryland unanimously celebrates the Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated for the incredible work over these last 106 years, soon to be 160, and thank you all so much for your incredible contributions to our great state. Gentlemen, I don't know if you know, but we have a Kappa caucus here, and I noticed that the Kappas were not cheering very loudly over here. There's a very quiet back corner there. All right, we do have another resolution. Chair recognizes the senator from the 44th District.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. We also have with us Zeta Phi Beta sorority, which is the Phi Beta Sigma sister sorority. With us is its Maryland State Director, Ms. LaTanya Ward, and I would say that everything that I said about the Sigmas, I would say about her organization. She and her organization, they've been wonderful as well within Baltimore County.
All right, the clerk will read the resolution in full.
be it hereby known to all that the Senate of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Zeta Phi Beta sorority, Maryland State Chapters, in recognition of your 99 years of scholarship, service, and sisterhood in Maryland. Thank you for your advocacy and community service.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their, would anybody like to change their vote? All right. The clerk will take the call. The Senate of Maryland unanimously again celebrates the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you so much for your incredible service to the to Marylanders of this great state. All right, we appreciate you all being here today. Thank you for being here, and thanks for what you do. Yes, Chair recognizes President Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just wanted to join with the senator from District 24 and say that these phenomenal folks have participated in Prince George's County in food giveaways, vaccination clinics, test events, And Miss Ward is my constituent in Legislative District 25.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Hails from a great place. All right. Any other introductions? Any other introductions? Yes, Chair recognizes the Senator from the 23rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as all of us are in here doing the hard work that we do as state legislators, let us not forget today is Valentine's Day. I ask colleagues, I ask you to help me to welcome my fiance for almost 2 months now, Ingrid Scott Harrison, Councilwoman for the City of Bowie.
All right.
Happy Valentine's Day, honey.
Now that is a great Valentine's Day date. You know, we thought exec nom, Senate floor. This doesn't get better than that. This is the top of the top. All right. Any other introductions? Any other introductions? All right. If not, without objection, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We have a very special day today. We're going to do a little bit of business, and then we will have a wonderful presentation from the senator from the 42nd District in just a bit. But let's see what we can get through. We've got some introduction of bills headed to the Rules Committee. Clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 912, Senator Penske, Higher Education, Student Financial Assistance, Alterations and Appropriations, Rules.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. We have some bond initiatives. Clerk will read the bond initiatives.
Senator Rostapep, St. Vincent's Pallotti High School. Senator Smith, Food Systems Facility. Senator Smith, ACS.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bond initiatives. They will be referred to the subcommittee on capital. We've got a third reading calendar. Let's do a quorum call before we do it quickly here.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. All right, we've got 4 bills here. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 25, Senator Castley, Reckless and Negligent Driving, Death of Another, Must Appear Violation, Sherry's and Christian's Law.
Senate Bill 25 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 25, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 29, Senator Elfreth, Family Law, Marriage Age Requirements.
Senate Bill 29 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 29, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 68, Senator Bailey, Sexual Offenses, Crime of Violence, and Lifetime Supervision.
Senate Bill 68 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 68, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 163, Senator Kagan, Election Law, Ballots, Processing, and Reporting Procedures. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 163 is on third reading for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Chair recognizes the minority whip.
We are waiting on an answer to a question. I wonder if we could special order this just for tomorrow.
Are there any-
We know we don't want an extended debate tonight, so.
Let's hear from the floor leader on the motion of special order.
Mr. President, this bill passed unanimously in EHE, and it's an emergency bill, but as a courtesy, we will grant 1 day, and everyone should be ready to vote tomorrow.
No objections to the special order. Without objection, so ordered. Bill will be special ordered at the appropriate time tomorrow. We've got a layover calendar. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 30, Senator Carter, Courts, Jury Service Disqualification. Question is on the adoption of the amendment offered from the floor by Senator Reedy.
Question before the body is on the one amendment. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask that if we could lay this over until the appropriate time tomorrow, or special order it rather, to the special time tomorrow.
Senators move to special order the bill. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. The bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time tomorrow. All right, Senators, the desk is clear. That was very efficient. Thank you. We have a very special. We only. On our Monday nights, we've only been here one other Monday night. It was for a wonderful presentation about the Martin Luther King celebration. And tonight, as Lincoln Day speech, we will have the senator from the 42nd District give us remarks that he has been working on for quite a while. So I'm going to raise the expectations. If we could welcome up the Senator from the 42nd District for the Lincoln Day Address. Welcome, Senator.
Mr. President, Madam President Pro Tem, friends, family, and guests in the galleries, those watching these proceedings online, colleagues, I feel very honored to have been asked to deliver the 2022 speech honoring the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. I would be remiss if I did not at the outset note the presence of my wife, Anne, and my son, Christopher, in the gallery. I also must give a shout out to my brother and many other members of my extended family who are tuned in online from their homes across the country. Finally, I want to pay tribute to the noted American historian Ronald C. White, Jr., whose work inspired my remarks this evening and whose insights will be duly noted in this address. On Memorial Day this year, just 3.5 months from now, the Lincoln Memorial on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., will mark the 100th anniversary of its dedication. In the intervening years, this most impressive and meaningful of all the monuments in the nation's capital has been the scene of innumerable major events in the history of our country, including Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. As you mount the long series of steps to the monument, the iconic Daniel Chester French statue of the steated Lincoln gradually comes into view. To the left of the statue, on the south wall of the monument, the words of the Gettysburg Address are inscribed. I'm sure that each of us either knows that brief speech by heart, or at least is familiar with some of its most memorable phrases, from 77 years ago at its beginning, to government of the people, by the people, for the people at its conclusion. If instead of turning left at the statue, however, you were to turn to the right, you would find inscribed on the north wall of the monument Lincoln's second inaugural address. A somewhat longer and today less familiar speech, the second inaugural address has been rightly called Lincoln's greatest speech. Tonight I propose to revisit the second inaugural address and to explore with you why it was and remains so important. In 1865, Inauguration Day fell on March 4th. 4 months had passed since Lincoln had won the presidential election of 1864. Up until virtually the eve of the election, its outcome had been very much in doubt. For most of 1864, the war effort had not gone well. Grant's army largely had been stymied by Lee in the battles of the Wilderness, Spotsylvania Courthouse, and Cold Harbor. Grant had suffered almost 60,000 casualties. Meanwhile, Sherman's army was marching slowly through the South. In August, Lincoln had resigned himself to losing the election. Finally, in September, Sherman took Atlanta, and Unionist fervor began to mount in the North. On Election Day, Lincoln received 221 electoral votes, to only 21 electoral votes for his opponent. On the night of March 3rd, it poured rain in Washington. The unpaved streets became seas of mud. On the morning of March 4th, gale-force winds accompanied the torrential rains. The Army Corps of Engineers actually looked into the possibility of laying pontoon boats on Pennsylvania Avenue between the White House and the Capitol. At 11:40 a.m., the rain finally stopped, and the inaugural party proceeded to the temporary scaffolding and platform that had been erected on the east side of the Capitol. A huge audience had gathered, about half of whom were black. When Lincoln was introduced, there was a huge ovation, and the military band played Hail to the Chief. At the very moment that Lincoln stepped forward to deliver his address, the sun came out. Noah Brooks, the correspondent for the Sacramento Daily Union, wrote, "Just at that moment, the sun, which had been obscured all day, burst forth in its unclouded meridian splendor and flooded the spectacle with glory and with light. The newly completed dome of the U.S. Capitol glistened overhead as the president began to speak." By Inauguration Day, it was clear to everyone that the Civil War was virtually over. Sherman was marching unimpeded through the South, and Grant had what was left of Lee's army bottled up in Petersburg, Virginia. The inaugural crowds anticipated a triumphant speech, celebrating the imminent victory of the North. Certainly most politicians would have taken advantage of such an occasion to deliver a speech designed to elicit cheer after cheer, so that the speaker would stand bathed in a crescendo of applause. But Lincoln surprised everyone. That was not his intent. Instead, the first paragraph of the four-paragraph second inaugural address was used to temper the expectations of his audience. Lincoln spoke. At this second appearing to take the oath of the presidential office, there is less occasion for an extended address than there was at the first. Then a statement somewhat in detail of a course to be pursued seemed fitting and proper. Now, at the end of the expiration of 4 years, during which public declarations have been constantly called forth on every point and phase of the great contest, which still absorbs the attention and engrosses the energies of the nation, little that is new could be presented. The progress of our arms, upon which all else chiefly depends, is as well known to the public as to myself, and it is, I trust, reasonably satisfactory and encouraging to all. With high hope for the future, no prediction in regard to it is ventured. Thus, the first paragraph of the second inaugural address focuses on what the speech was not going to be about. It was not going to be an extended address. It was not going to contain new information about the war. It was not going to predict a magnificent victory. In fact, it was not going to venture any prediction whatsoever in regard to the war. Lincoln used this first paragraph to prepare his audience for what would turn out to be a very unusual inaugural address. Most inaugural addresses fall into one of two categories. Either the speech is a warmed-over campaign speech, using the same talking points and guaranteed applause lines, or else the speech is a list speech, listing all of the goals of the new administration. Lincoln's second inaugural fell into neither of these categories. Lincoln continued to speak. On the occasion corresponding to this 4 years ago, all thoughts were anxiously directed to an impending civil war. All dreaded it. All sought to avert it. While the inaugural address was being delivered from this place, devoted altogether to saving the Union without war, insurgent agents were in the city seeking to destroy it without war, seeking to dissolve the Union and divide effects by negotiations. Both parties deprecated war, but one of them would make war rather than let the nation survive, and the other would accept war rather than let it perish. And the war came. As Ronald White has noted, Lincoln's central overarching strategy in the second inaugural address was to emphasize common actions and common emotions. In the second paragraph of the speech, note Lincoln's frequent use of the words all and both. All thoughts were anxiously directed to an impending civil war. All dreaded it. All sought to avert it. Both parties deprecated war. But simultaneously, Lincoln used the rhetorical practice of antithesis, saving the Union without war versus destroy it without war, make war versus accept war. By the way, in Lincoln's original manuscript for this speech, the words saving, destroy, make, and accept are all underlined. Finally, note Lincoln's wonderful alliteration throughout this paragraph: directed, dreaded, delivered, devoted, destroy, dissolve, divide, deprecated. The paragraph is only 5 sentences long, but there's a lot packed into those 5 sentences. And the final astounding sentence, "and the war came," ascribes no responsibility for the war. It just came. This anticipates the incredible third paragraph of the address, which insistently refuses to blame one side for the war, but emphasizes that both sides were responsible. The third paragraph of the address is lengthy and covers a lot of ground. It is the heart of the speech and covers a very difficult subject, the cause of the war. 2.5 years earlier, in September 1862, Lincoln had written a private meditation on the divine will. This paper was discovered after Lincoln's death. Here's what he wrote. The will of God prevails. In great contests, each party claims to act in accordance with the will of God. Both may be, and one must be wrong. God cannot be for and against the same thing at the same time. In the present Civil War, it is quite possible that God's purpose is something different from the purpose of either party. I'm almost ready to say that this is probably true, that God wills this contest and wills that it shall not end yet. Clearly, these thoughts continued to occupy Lincoln's mind, and they evolved and expanded, and they're given full expression in the third paragraph of the second inaugural address. Lincoln then began the third paragraph of the address. 1/8 of the whole population were colored slaves, not distributed generally over the Union, but localized in the southern part of it. These slaves constituted a peculiar and powerful interest. All knew that this interest was somehow the cause of the war. To strengthen, perpetuate, and extend this interest was the object for which the insurgents would rend the Union, even by war, while the government claimed no right to do more than to restrict the territorial enlargement of it. Neither party expected for the war the magnitude or the duration which it has already attained. Neither anticipated that the cause of the conflict might cease with, or even before, the conflict itself should cease. Each looked for an easier triumph, and a result less fundamental and astounding. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. Now, let me pause here to note that at this point in the address, the name of the Lord is introduced for the first time. This marks the point in the address when the speech advances from a historical analysis of what has gone before to a theological discussion of the present and the future. The opening sentences of this paragraph grab the audience and build anticipation. Neither party expected, neither anticipated, each looked. And note once again that Lincoln emphasizes common actions and emotions. Neither the North nor the South is singled out for praise or blame. Although each side invoked God's aid against the other, Lincoln rejected the concept of a tribal God who took sides. And then there is that critical word, somehow, in the sentence stating that all knew that slavery was somehow the cause of the war. As the third paragraph continues, Lincoln explains who was responsible for the war, and his conclusion is quite astounding. The third paragraph continues. Both read the same Bible and pray to the same God, and each invokes his aid against the other. It may seem strange that any man should dare ask a just God's assistance in wringing their bread from the sweat of other men's faces, but let us judge not, that we be not judged. The prayers of both could not be answered, that of neither has been answered fully. The Almighty has his own purposes. No inaugural address up until that point had dared to speculate upon God's design, particularly in the context of a war that had produced 750,000 casualties, 750,000 casualties. But in the remainder of the second inaugural address, Lincoln would quote from 4 biblical passages. At that point in American history, the Bible was at the center of American life. Nearly every home possessed a Bible, and it was consulted constantly. Most Americans could quote from memory vast numbers of biblical passages. Many Civil War soldiers on both sides carried Bibles with them, even into battle. So in this address, as Lincoln quoted liberally from the Bible, his listeners would have recognized the familiar words and placed them in their proper biblical contexts. And when Lincoln stated that the Almighty has his own purposes, he put God at the rhetorical center of the address. The third paragraph continues to its stunning conclusion. The Almighty has his own purposes. Woe unto the world because of offenses, for it must needs be that offenses come, but woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. If we shall suppose that American slavery, note, not Southern slavery, is one of those offenses which in the providence of God must needs come, but which having continued through his appointed time, he now wills to remove, and that he gives to both North and South this terrible war, as the woe due to those by whom the offense came, shall we discern therein any departure from those divine attributes which the believers in the living God always ascribe to him? Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet, if God wills that it continue, until all the wealth piled by the bondsman's 250 years of unrequited toil shall be sunk, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another drawn with the sword, as was said 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Wow. At this stage in the speech, Lincoln's audience was dead silent as his powerful words swept over the crowd. In Lincoln's view, the Lord had decided that the time for the offense of slavery had come to an end and had called forth the terrible war to visit punishment on both sides. For in Lincoln's words, the woe due to those by whom the offense came. Not only that, but if the Lord should will that the war should continue until all the wealth produced by slavery shall be extinguished, and until every drop of blood drawn from the backs of black slaves with the lash has been paid by another drop of blood shed on the field of battle, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. Simply stated, the Civil War, with all of its attendant suffering, was God's chosen means of purging the United States of the sin of slavery. Wow, indeed. And now finally, at the end of the address, Lincoln looks to the future. The war is nearly at an end. The skies are clearing. In his magnificent peroration, which will be remembered for so long as this nation endures, Lincoln looks ahead. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow, and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. Because we know that Lincoln was assassinated just 40 days after delivering this speech, we tend to think of it as a valedictory. But Lincoln's audience heard it as a new beginning, the dawning of a new era in American history. In the audience that day was 29-year-old Charles Francis Adams, Jr. Adams had fought at Antietam and at Gettysburg. He was the son of the American ambassador to England, the grandson of President John Quincy Adams, and the great-grandson of President John Adams. 3 days after the inauguration, he wrote to his father, "That rail-splitting lawyer is one of the wonders of the day. Once at Gettysburg, and now on a greater occasion, he has shown a capacity for rising to the demands of the hour. This inaugural address strikes me in its grand simplicity and directness as being for all time the historical keynote of this war." There was another personage of note in the crowd that day. The foremost leader of the nation's African Americans, Frederick Douglass, stood so close to the front that Lincoln took note of his presence. Following the speech, Douglass decided to attend the post-inaugural reception at the White House. Arriving at the executive mansion, he found his way barred by two policemen who informed him that they had been directed to admit no persons of color. Douglass protested that there must be a mistake, because in Douglass's words, no such order could have emanated from President Lincoln. Douglass asked a passing guest to tell the president that he was being detained. Minutes later, as Douglass entered the East Room, Lincoln called out, "Here comes my friend Douglass." Taking Douglass by the hand, Lincoln said, "I'm glad to see you. I saw you in the crowd today listening to my inaugural address. How did you like it?" Douglass responded, "Mr. Lincoln, I must not detain you with my poor opinion." "No, no," Lincoln answered. "There's no man in the country whose opinion I value more than yours. I want to know what you think of it." Douglass replied, "Mr. Lincoln, that was a sacred effort." Over 150 years have passed since 1865, and yet Lincoln's second inaugural address still can speak to us today. For in some respects, our nation has become just as divided today as it was in the Civil War era. We are riven by bitter and rancorous partisanship. Polls show that in a high percentage of households, the parents would be very upset if they were to learn that one of their children had gotten engaged to marry someone who is registered as a member of the other major political party. Social media facilitates hate-filled exchanges between angry partisans. Might I suggest we revisit the Lincoln Memorial in this centennial year? Climb the steps, gaze upon the serene, thoughtful statue, and then turn to face the north wall and read Lincoln's words for guidance in these difficult times. "With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to do all which may achieve a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations."
Chair recognizes the Minority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, I appreciate the gentleman from District 42 and well-delivered, well-thought-out speech. I ask that be journalized, please.
Without objection, most certainly. That was phenomenal, Senator. That was really, really a history lesson, a sentiment that I think all of us can hear more often. Just truly, truly remarkable. Would expect nothing less. Raised expectations and shattered them. Truly, it was wonderful. Thank you. That was really special. What a good way to kick off the week. We do have one more additional presentation coming later this year. It'll be next week. I don't know how we'll top it, but we will have in the Old Senate Chamber, we will adjourn to the Old Senate Chamber where another one of our founding fathers had another pretty remarkable act, and we'll have President Freeman Hrabowski from UMBC who will be giving us a presentation about leadership in times of crisis, certainly resonating off of today's theme. So you've set the stage quite well. Thank you, Senator, and I think we'll have a great presentation next week. All right, let's see, do we have any announcements, any committee announcements before tomorrow morning? It appears we do not. Any other announcements before we adjourn? Yes, Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I just want permission to use the senator's name.
Most
we
certainly.
just missed one birthday. Senator Mary Beth Carrozza had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Give her applause. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, if there are no further announcements, let's do a quorum call before we adjourn.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Tuesday, February 15th at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Without objection, so ordered. Thank you. Go out on those wonderful words from Senator from the 42nd District this evening. Stay safe, everyone.